With God's help and through the prayers of the Holy Fathers, Holy Sophia Prayer House presents a video prepared on an Orthodox Christian topic. Thank you for your attention, and we wish you a spiritually beneficial and fruitful viewing. Holy Great King Vakhtang Gorgasali, plus 502. The Georgian king Mehrdad was captured by the Persians and taken to Baghdad, where he died. The Christian faith died in Kartli, and the fires of fire worshippers were lit in the churches. 3 years later, the Persian king was attacked by an enemy from the east. The nobles of Kartli took advantage of this and installed Archil, the son of Thradatis, who had previously taken refuge in Kakheti, as king in Skida. Archil married the Greek king Eubimianos. With their help he restored Christianity in Kartli, killed some of the servants of the fire, expelled others, and, turning back, preached to all Kartli to give thanks to the Lord Jesus Christ, with whose help the country regained its freedom. Archil's son Mehrdad was also a believer and a worshipper of God, a good husband and a ruler like his father. For the security of the country, he asked Barzabad, the chieftain of Ranta, to marry his daughter. Barzabad happily agreed to this proposal. Queen Sagdukt, as soon as she became acquainted with Christian doctrine, immediately of her own free will rejected fire worship, embraced the teachings of Christ, and built the three-stone shown as a sign of gratitude to the Lord. King Mehrdad and Queen Sagdukt had 3 children, 2 daughters, Kvarans and Mirandukti, and 1 son, whose name was pronounced in Persian as Vakhtang and in Georgian as Vakhtang. Vakhtang was entrusted to the care of the nobleman Spazpet. He was 7 years old when King Mehrdad died. Frightened and helpless, the Queen Sagdukt approached her father, Barzabad, knelt before him and begged with tears not to be punished for the deeds done by her husband and father-in-law for the country, not to forcibly take away her Christian faith, and to have little Vakhtang as her guardian and protector. Barzabad, although furious with the Georgian king, was already planning to march on Kartli, which remained kingless, but the tears of his daughter softened his heart. He agreed to all the proposals and even made a promise to her. I will send fire servants to Kartli. They will not force anyone to change the law of Christ, but if someone himself turns out to be willing to do so, do not even you prevent them. For some time, Queen Sagdukt ruled the kingdom with the help and power of her father. Then Barzabad died, and the Persian king installed Barzabad's son, Varazbaku, in his place. Meanwhile, Sormag Spazpet also died, and Vakhtang's upbringing was entrusted to Spazpet Wanshur. Queen Sagdukt saw how the bishop of the fire servants, Vakhtang, was deceiving the Georgians, how he was misleading and leading away the true faith. The number of Georgians who were abandoning Christ and recognizing fire as a deity was slowly increasing. Concerned, Sagdukt had a priest named Michael brought from Greece, appointed him bishop, and with his help, Vakhtang began to convert the Georgians back to Christianity. When Vakhtang was 10 years old, Ossetians invaded Kartli, ravaged the area, took many captives with them, including Vakhtang's 3-year-old son and Mirandukti, and returned. At the same time, the Greeks also invaded Abkhazia and captured it from Egrist-Kali to Tsaikagoja. Mourning and sorrow abounded in Kartli, and the country remained without a guardian until Vakhtang turned 15. The 15-year-old king summoned all the nobles to the royal city, took Wanshur and 2 bishops with him, stood up and addressed the gathering as if he were old and wise. God will send trials and tribulations to both kings and nations for their sins. We have deserved this wrath of the Lord. When believers give up serving the Lord and forget his commandments, God sends them trials to awaken them. Let us thank the Lord for this, and let us lead the way with the honest cross and, with its help, seek revenge on the Ossetians. If the Persians or Greeks had done the same, we might have been spared for some reason, but death is better for each of us than enduring this insult from the Ossetians. The contempt for my country and the pity for my sister have filled my heart. I trust in the cross of the Lord. I ask for help from the all-merciful God, and he will not abandon me, but will give me over to the enemy. Everyone, including Wanshur, welcomed the proposal with enthusiasm. The king spent a week in prayer, fasting, and night vigils, and then, together with 100,000 Georgians and 12,000 horsemen sent to help from Varazbaku, he set out for Tyanidi. There they were joined by another 50,000 horsemen, and the king, chanting the name of God, passed through the gates of Darialani. The Ossetians called on the Khazars for help and confronted the Georgians from the other side of the Aragbi-Turgi River. After 7 days of fighting, the giant Khazar Tarkhan emerged from the Ofsi camp and boldly challenged one of Vakhtang's spas to face-to-face combat. On the Georgian side, the world-famous Persian warrior Nijifaruk marched out, but Tarkhan immediately cut himself in half upon meeting. Vakhtang's palace was shaken. Filled with grief, Vakhtang spent the whole night in prayer, and the next day, when Tarkhan again called for a face-to-face battle, he himself expressed his desire for it and calmed the frightened army thus: "I do not trust in my own strength and my own strength, but in the grace of the incomparable God, the Trinity, the one essence, the creator of all things, I will go through the self-struggle of the Tarkhan." Indeed, at the very first clash, the last king lost his nerve, immediately jumped off his horse, fell to his knees, worshipped the god of help, cut off Tarkhan's head, and triumphantly turned towards the army. The next day, another Ossetian, a Bumbarazi named Bakatar, came out from across the river and called out to the king, "King, don't be angry. It happened by chance. Otherwise, how could you kill Tarkhan, so young? Come out across the river and see what I will do to you." The king, riding on horseback, proudly shouted to the hunter, "I did not defeat Tarkhan by my own strength, but by the strength of my creator. Therefore, I am not afraid of you either. And besides, I should not go out there. You should come here yourself, because I am the king, and you are a slave, you dog." After a short battle, the falcon, pierced to the heart, fell at the king's feet. The king mounted the falcon's horse instead of his own wounded horse and, turning around, called out loudly to his master, "Be strong and courageous, for God is with us." Vakhtang destroyed and razed all of Ossetia to the ground, took many prisoners, and took immense booty. The Georgians also subdued the Kipchaks, locked the gate of Ossetia to Dariali, built fortresses, and placed the local mountaineers as guards. From now on, Ossetians and Kipchaks were forbidden to enter Dariali without the permission of the Georgian king. After that, King Vakhtang subdued Pachanikidi and Jakati and immediately returned to Ossetia. The frightened Ossetians fled to their fortresses and sent messengers to Vakhtang, asking for 30,000 Ossetian prisoners in exchange for their sister. In addition to the sister, the king also freed the rest of the Georgian prisoners, sent them to Kartli, and marched with an army to Abkhazia, which had been conquered by the Greeks. 3 years later, Vakhtang completely cleared Abkhazia of the Greeks and, exhausted by the battle, finally returned victorious to his home city of Mskita. Vakhtang married Balandukti, the daughter of the Persian king. The Persian king gave his daughter as a dowry the Armenians and all the kings of the Caucasus, and sent a letter from Ermisti to the king of all kings, to Vakhtang Varinkvasrotangi, the king of 10 kings of Akavani, asking for help in the fight against Caesar. At that time, the king was already 22 years old. He summoned his spa, all the kings of the Caucasus, and went on a campaign in Greece. After 3 months of battles and victories, Vakhtang had already reached Constantinople. Wherever the Persians saw the servants of Christ, they mercilessly killed and destroyed them. From the very beginning, Vakhtang declared to his spa, both Georgians and non-Georgians, that they should refrain from killing the servants of the church, and asked them to simply take them prisoner, or at least let them go unharmed. When my father's father, like us, led the Persians to fight against the Greeks, their army also joined in the slaughter of the servants of the church. Christ is the true God of all. That is why the Lord did not forgive the actions committed against his servants. That is why the small army of the Greeks defeated the countless Persians. Have you not heard of the miracle of Constantine? Or of the idolatrous King Julian, who was slain by an arrow from heaven? It was after this that the Greeks chose Eubimianos as their king, the very one who with his own hands destroyed the idols and erected the crosses. The angel of the Lord placed a crown on his head with his own hand, as a true king. Or do you, Armenians, not remember how God converted Gregory of Parthia and King Thradit, and how after that Gregory became a servant of the church, and King Thradit became a great builder of the church? Or you, inhabitants of Kartli, relatives of the kings of Kartli, who are glorified today by us, relatives of the hero Nebrialatos, Georgian kings, have you not heard of the miracles of Nebrialatos? Do you not remember what miracles Nino performed? Do you think that God will sacrifice his glorifying Greeks? Caesar is already preparing for an attack. Quench your passions towards the churches. King Vakhtang ordered all the church servants to be released from their captivity, and he also sent a messenger to inform the clergy who were hiding in hiding places that no one would touch them and that they could go wherever they wanted. When the Greek priest Peter and the monk Samoli came to Vakhtang to express their gratitude, the king asked them if God would be pleased with his actions. Peter told the king, "If you don't mind, I'll tell you the truth." When he agreed, he said, "The Lord has two kinds of churches in this world, churches of flesh and churches of stone. If a church of stone is destroyed, it can be rebuilt with the same stone, but it is impossible to build a church of flesh, and God will not forgive anyone for violating it, because for the Lord it is precisely that temple that is first and foremost. Now imagine how many virgins, the temple of God, your spam has corrupted and insulted. I do not want you to be a man who builds with his left hand and destroys with his right. I want you to inherit the kingdom of heaven, just like the well-remembered kings, David, Solomon, Constantine, and Eubymianos. But how can I compare you to Eubymianos? What have you done to you that he did? Know that God will repay you for your evil deeds if you do not repent towards the Jews. I want to justify myself, said the king, and you have justly punished me for my crime. Since you are seeking the way to salvation, your sin will be removed from you. Ignorance did not prompt you to fight against the children of God, but you also went to the aid of your kinsmen, the Persians, and you forgot that the Greeks are the kinsmen of God himself. What do you want from me now? The king asked. I want you to extinguish this fire you have ignited and make friends with your fellow believer Caesar, not with the Persians. The king asked Peter, through your prayers tonight, show me Caesar and also tell me what Christ himself wants from me. Indeed, that night King Vakhtang saw a vision. Saint Nino came to him and said, Rise up, O king, and stand in awe, for two kings of heaven and earth will come to you. Vakhtang looked up and saw two thrones. On one throne sat a young man in armor and a crown, and on the other, an old man dressed in white, with a crown of light on his head. Saint Nino was also sitting there at the old man's feet. Vakhtang's right hand was held by the priest Peter and his left by the monk Samuel. Samuel said to Vakhtang, First, worship the Prince of Heaven, Gregory. The king approached and bowed to Gregory. And Gregory asked, Why did you commit such evil? Why did you destroy my camp and feed my livestock to wild animals? If it were not for those who stand by you now, and if it were not for Saint Nino, who fights with Mary for your country, I would take revenge on you, just as I did on your ancestors, who hoped in fire and not in the enlightener of all. Vakhtang kissed Grigol's hand and hugged Caesar. If you want me to give you the crown, promise to fight against the enemies of the Lord, Caesar told him. Saints Nino, Peter, and Samuel stood before the king as his successors. Then the emperor placed a cross-shaped crown on Vakhtang's head. Having woken up, Vakhtang summoned Peter and Samuel and asked them what vision they had seen that night. When they began to tell exactly the same story, the king stopped them and declared that he was ready to serve the true God. The three of them consulted together as to what would be best, and Vakhtang ordered his army to withdraw from the city that was being prepared for destruction. Meanwhile, Peter approached Caesar, reported everything, and the overjoyed Caesar quickly entered Constantinople. Vakhtang wanted to verbally intimidate the Persians with the invincibility of the Greeks and make them retreat without a fight, but the Greeks demanded that the matter be arranged in such a way that they would be cut off. To this, the king sternly replied that this was a dishonorable act and he would not do it. Besides, there are many in his army who acknowledge the law of Christ. It is better that everything be resolved peacefully, as Eubymianus and the Persians once did. And if the Greeks do not disband, then the king will be simple before them. Meanwhile, the Persian leader arrived and unleashed a terrible wrath upon his nephew. Because you are a relative of Eubymianos, is that why you betray us? You want to hand us over to the Greeks because of a dead crucified man. To this, Vakhtang replied, Behold, you and the Greeks, and see the power of man, both dead and alive, in your hope. The Persians, Armenians, and Leki attacked the Greeks, while Vakhtang stood aside with the Georgian army and watched the battle. In this battle, the Persians were severely defeated. Among many nobles, Vakhtang's mother's brother also fell on the battlefield. All those who remained alive were taken prisoner by the Greeks. Then King Vakhtang jumped down from his chariot and said that God had taken revenge on the Persians. He had Peter's cross brought to him and declared, "He who worships the cross is invincible. Worship him. Whoever does not do this must be killed." Demeter Aristavi and Wancher Spazpet held the cross in their hands, while the preacher loudly chanted, "Whoever does not bow to the cross, let him die." Only one servant of the fire, King Borzo, refused to worship the cross, and even he was immediately struck in the heart by Wancher Spazpet. Everyone who remained went and bowed their knees in reverence before the cross. At this time, a part of the Greek army rushed from somewhere under the command of Polikarpos, who began to insult Vakhtang and his retinue. Vakhtang drew his sword and asked the Lord to help him humiliate and destroy the cross and the arrogant man who insulted him. After a short fight, the king cut Polikarpos' head in half and threw one half of it before the cross, saying, "All your apostates have a part." Vakhtang's army attacked the Greeks. He saw them at sea, killed half of them, and took half as prisoners. The king wrote a letter to Caesar in which he informed him that the wisdom of God is unfathomable. "I know that it was not your fault that Polikarpos fell upon us, just as I am a simpleton in the attack of my mother's brother on you." Both of them were hunted down by the mother's brother. God probably arranged all this so that as many as possible would be converted to the true faith. "I alleviated the grief caused by the death of my mother's brother by taking revenge on his murderers, and you, as a consolation, returned to you the 7,080 prisoners that God saved from death. If you wish to meet with me, come and see me, because it is already time for me to return to my homeland." Caesar, overjoyed by the release of the captives, met with the king. They confirmed their loyalty to each other with an oath, and as a sign of gratitude, Caesar returned to Vakhtang, the border of Kartli, the fortress of Tokhari and Klarjeti from every sea to Arsianta, and the ravines that flow into Gado. On his way back, Vakhtang passed through Klarjeti, left his foster son Artavaz there, and instructed him to build the fortress of Artanuj and a monastery. Artavaz did indeed build the monastery of Opaiza there and 3 churches, the town of Marisa, Shindobi, and Akais. After some time, Queen Belenduct died. The king had a son by her, a little Dachi. The king expected the Persian invasion and therefore began to build fortresses and cities, and at the same time prepared an army for battle. He threw Binkarin, the fire worshipper, into prison and expelled all those who worshipped fire from the country. When the Persian king came to fight against Kartli, King Vakhtang asked the Greek king for help. Vakhtang's envoys could not reach Caesar in Greece. He had gone on a campaign, so Vakhtang was forced to fight the enemy alone. The king's helmet had a wolf on the front and a lion on the other side, and it was during this battle that the Persians nicknamed him Gorgasal. Der Az Gorgasal. Beware of the wolf's head, this is how they warned each other. This battle lasted 4 months. In the meantime, Caesar also helped Vakhtang with 80,000 Greek cavalry. The Persian king, as soon as he heard the news of the arrival of the Greeks, was afraid and sent messengers to Vakhtang to reconcile. Vakhtang said to him, "You have seen the power of the cross. Before it appeared, everyone paid tribute to you, but now your own Greeks are burning you with fire. In vain we are ready to die for the sake of abandoning the Jewish law. He who bore the cross for us will also raise us up. And you, if you abandon the fire and confess our Christ, I will consider you my father." Vakhtang and the Persian king Khosrow met each other sweetly, although both stood firm in their own opinion, but at the same time they swore peace and love to each other. Khosrow told the king, "Whatever you ask of me, I will fulfill it." Then the king asked, "I also want peace between you and Caesar." Khosrow was worried because he was about to invade Greece right now, wanting to take advantage of Caesar's presence in Khazaristan and Jewishize his lands, which Greece had seized. The Greek bishop Leon Antipater was also present at the conversation between Vakhtang and Khosrow, and when he heard Khosrow's intention, he happily told him that Greece agrees to return your lands to you without a fight, and that I have a letter from Caesar to that effect." Khosrow was very happy. Isaiah immediately changed his mind about going on a campaign against Greece, but he asked Vakhtang, "If I return to Persia without taking revenge on the Greeks, what kind of a fate will the elders give me? Come and marry me so that I can justify myself by marrying you. Also, follow me and help me in the fight against the Abashas, Elamites, Hindus, and Sinds, so that I can make them submissive and thus quell the elders' anger against the Greeks." Vakhtang agreed to all the conditions. Then Leon Antipater thanked King Vakhtang for saving the Greeks once again and promised to help first with 10,000 horsemen, and then with the rest. Vakhtang left his 5-year-old son Dachi as king in Kartli. He left 7 nobles as guardians for him. Artvazi, Nassar, Bivrishiani, and Sormag himself fled and followed Khosrow to Persia with his army. On the way, Vakhtang's Khwarans and his mother also left, who wanted to go to Jerusalem to pray. Vakhtang took his mother and sister to Jerusalem and rejoined Khosrow, who was waiting in Antioch. Leon Antipater and Artavatsi, who had been sent to Greece earlier, arrived with 20,000 chosen horsemen and presented Khosrow with gifts from Caesar that were unattainable. Khosrow held a grand wedding in Persia. 6 months later, the united army set out to fight. They conquered Georgia, India, and entered Sindeti. In Sindeti, the king of Sormag, the son of Vakhtang, was deeply saddened by his death, stood up and mourned Sormag as if he were a beloved brother. At that time, the king of Sindeti stepped out of the city gate and called out to Vakhtang loudly, "You are like that crow, O king, who saw a hawk torn apart by an eagle and, instead of calling out to the other ravens of the Jewish people and killing their weakened enemy with them, began to take care of it and brought it a snake and a snake to eat. The hawk grew up and thought, 'What can this food do to me? It is better for me to eat the crow myself, so that I can become a bird and fly away.' He ate it and did the right thing, because by doing so he avoided death, while the raven died because he did not follow his Jewish people from the beginning. Those Persians have been enemies of the cross and its servants all their lives. Now they have become weak and will cunningly pretend to love you. With your help, they will be humbled and will again begin to kill the servants of the cross. This is what you are preparing for yourself and other Christians." "You fool," replied Vakhtang, "you are like a mouse. You have seen nothing but the darkness of the earth. You do not understand the brilliance of the sun and the beauty of Velisea. You are blind and deaf. You neither understand nor know spiritual life. You have no desire to attain eternal life. You do not recognize the endless light, nor the creator of all things, by whom all things were created. By my presence here I have saved Jerusalem, the holy city. I have also saved the Christian countries, which the king of Persia was preparing to destroy. I have saved many souls by my coming here, and if, as you say, the Persians ever attack me, then precisely by the power and assistance of Christ, the Christians will help me and save me from the ordeal. And even if it were not so, I would still come here because the Persians are my relatives and, secondly, although they do not believe in the true faith, they still believe in the spiritual life, unlike you, who are as ignorant as the crows. It is precisely because of this ignorance that your mind is vile. That is why I praise the ungrateful hawk who ate his own food. But our nature is such, we should lay down our lives for the good and win favor from God, find eternal life, and in this world win praise from men." The king of Sind threatened Vakhtang, "I will come out, kill you, and share in future glory right now, because that is what you believe in," and he came out armed with a heroli against Vakhtang. Vakhtang did not hesitate to attack the king of Sind a second time, but instead dragged him before the Persian king, asking him to bring a healer for him, and then to console him and let him go alive. The king of Sind lovingly thanked King Vakhtang for his life and also for preventing the enemy from destroying his 4 cities. In the 8th year, King Vakhtang returned to Kartli and sent Leon the Greek to Caesar to ask for his daughter and to bring Peter and Samuel. When the bishop of Kartli heard about the sending of the apostles to bring Peter and Samuel, he became angry and, unable to think of anything else, he slandered the king, saying, "Christ has abandoned you, and you have accepted fire worship." He did not listen to the king's explanation and became so angry that he even hit him in the arm and knocked out a tooth. The king did not turn his back on the bishop, but told him that he had done this out of envy, called him Judas, and sent him to the Patriarch of Constantinople for punishment, where he was also given an excommunication. The Patriarch sent 12 bishops to Kartli and consecrated Peter as Catholicos. Caesar also sent his daughter Helena to marry the king. The king installed Peter as Catholicos in Skida and Samuel as bishop there, and distributed the rest to Clargeti, Arashidi Artani, Sunda, Javakiti, Manglisi, Balnasai, Rustavi, Ninotsminda, Sheremi, Keladi, Kornabuji, and Agaraki. Later, he built a church in Nicosia and installed a bishop there as well. Vakhtang had 3 sons and 2 daughters from his Greek wife. He gave the city of Sheremi and Nikrisi and the city of Kambekovani to his wife, and he himself settled in Ujarma. Meanwhile, Khosrow, the king of Persia, died, and his son Khosrow ascended the throne, who told Vakhtang, "I am preparing to march on Greece, and I will accompany you, and you will also betroth me your daughter." At that time, the 60-year-old King Vakhtang was building Tiflis. When he was told about Khosrow's arrival, he said, "Tell Khosrow to first prepare for battle with us and then enter Greece. Now our lives are like the lives of the crucified Sassos." The king sent out his cavalry throughout the country and began preparing for battle, and he also asked Caesar to help. The Khosrow king came and destroyed the city of Kambekovan, the Chermi fortress, and the Velistike. The Persians and Georgians joined forces at Ayr, and a fierce battle broke out. The king summoned the Catholicos and said, "Know that the Persians are not persecuting us Jews for tribute, but to make us surrender Christ. I prefer to die as a Christian and be in the kingdom than to live without Christ, because he teaches us that whoever loses his life for me will find it." Vakhtang's army consisted of 240,000 men, and the Persians, 740,000. The king divided his army into 3, took 100,000 himself, and attacked the place where the Persian king was at night. At dawn he penetrated the king's tent. The king overtook him on horseback. Vakhtang killed his son, cut off his head, and at that very moment a Persian shot an arrow into his heart. The Georgians fought selflessly, but they could do little to stop the enemy's large numbers. Meanwhile, Vakhtang's wound was festering as the arrow had entered his lung. He himself went to Ujarma and ordered his Spazasler not to leave the battlefield. Vakhtang realized that he was dying. He called the Catholicos, his wife, his children, all the dignitaries, and said, "I am going to my God. I thank his name that I am not lacking in his chosen saints. Stand firm in the faith and seek death for Christ, that you may gain immortal glory. You, distinguished people of Kartli, remember my good deeds, for from my house you have seen the eternal light. Do not dishonor my name and love the Greeks of the same faith." Then he looked at Dachi and told him that he was his firstborn, and therefore he was giving him the kingdom. He called the Aristavi and asked in the name of God for protection for his wife and children. All of Georgia was mourning. The earth shook from the bells and cries. The believing nation mourned the king who had been killed for Christ. Prepared according to Kartli Life. Golo Kobiashvili. Newspaper, Madly, Issue 1-2, 1990. The source S translated by docs.google.com. Apologues for any errors. Haga Sophia Chapel. May God bless you. Thank you for your attention. You have watched a video presented by Holy Sophia Prayer House. Please subscribe to the channel so that it may become more successful and its work may serve good and beneficial purposes even more effectively. May God help and bless you.